Welcome to the Strategist podcast on the Decodin, brought to you by Shock Safe and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr, and today I am joined by one of the legends of Minot.
Whoa.
Derek Hackett.
Easy on that. You got to temper the expectations. A guy from Minot is probably more accurate.
A guy from Minot. So you're from Minot, born and raised?
Not born, but raised. This is
Raised.
home. Born in Green Bay, Wisconsin. When
Okay.
I was real young, we moved. My family's from. My dad's from Glenburn, mom's from Max. They met in the middle. We moved back here when I was about 5, and this has basically been home since. So
Very good.
I am dipped, vaccinated, and Minot's home.
Yes. So I've talked to a couple people, and one of the questions I ask them is, why did you stay around? I've been in Minot for 15 years, moved here when I was in my teenage years, and I loved it. Loved the community, loved just what makes Minot Minot. So what made you stay around?
It's a loaded question. There's almost like this cosmic energy that either keeps you here or brings you back in
Right.
some way. When in my 20s, going through college, I was thinking, all right, I was going for broadcast journalism at Minot State. I'm like, all right, whole idea is to get in, jump markets, get to a bigger market.
Right.
That's where all the money's made, and that's where all the opportunities were. So I had big dreams of going to Minneapolis or something, but in school, I was fortunate enough to be able to work for local news station KX here as part-time sports that generated into full-time sports, generated into news, generated into morning, and this is home. This is where I want to be now.
Right.
I have a family. I don't even consider moving it any place else. This is where all my roots are, and I've really dug those roots in with different business ventures, with what I do, and trying to stay involved with the community. So the idea of leaving passed my mind briefly about a decade ago. It's never come back.
Never came back. Very cool. I find that a lot of people that we talk to worked in news and then they stuck around. So
that's the anchor, it seems.
That's the anchor. I love it. So you worked in news, and then eventually you worked at the city of Minot.
Mm-hmm.
That probably had to be a little bit different, working in a social setting like that, or a civil setting where you're looked at a little bit differently than the rest of the world. You don't get to report on the city. Now you are the city. You get to be reported on. What was that change like?
Well, it was different, but it was also the same in a lot of ways. So when it comes down to it, I was a communicator, a storyteller. That's what you're trained to do in news, is to tell the stories of the day. Well, when I moved to the city for communication as a public information officer, that was just over 7 years ago. It was the same thing. It's just my focus of stories was narrowed to the organization, to the community proper, and to the mission that the local government had to providing services for the community. So in essence, the job was the same. The difference was I had to hone in my knowledge base to be a little bit more specific. I was sitting in a room full of engineers and accountants. I was oftentimes the dumbest guy in the room, but I had to try to understand what they were talking about and be able to help other people understand what those things were, how they impacted them, when they were happening, what it means, and so on and so forth. So in essence, the formal training of being a reporter was really beneficial to my next step in my job. And you'll see that a lot. That's why you speak to so many former journalists, is because those skill sets, they're kind of like the baseline of what you need to kind of make that next step, whether it is in business or staying in communications or teaching. It's all communication. All it is being able to convey a thought, convey a message, and to properly tell a story to help further your mission or your career or what have you. So
that's really good insight. And that's part of what made you, I said famous, Minot famous, was your ability to tell the story. And I understand that maybe that's overblown. You can slap me after this podcast. But on the social media accounts, we went through some difficult times during your 7 years. One of those was that monstrosity of a snowstorm back to back, where we got 40, 50 inches, whatever it was, last year in 2022, spring of 2022. And one of the bright spots in it was the social media of the city that was going and making it a little more manageable. But of course, it wasn't just that. You were also conveying what was going on. You're telling the story in a fun way. So tell me a little bit about how that goes down. Is it something where you just get free reign there, where you can just say anything you want? Is there something you have to be worried about, a superior being concerned about how the story, like how does that role work for you?
Well, at that time, there was a certain amount of autonomy that I had. You know, I had trust of my administration and the city council. It hasn't always been that way. And most of that wasn't because I wasn't given that autonomy. It's because I was a little bit more self-conscious earlier in my career. We had other snowstorms that didn't go as well.
Yes.
But I looked at that storm and, you know, it was kind of a perfect storm, pun intended here, because the projections were like 48 inches in 3 days. And it was just a ridiculous situation. Like, this is nonsense.
Right.
There's nothing we can do. It does not matter how much money we throw at this operation. We cannot solve this problem made by nature. So it is what it is. And I knew that we needed to be clear, consistent, and creative. Right. Because in this world, right, there's so much saturation. I mean, what you guys do here is you are competing in the same marketplace that I was competing with when I was at the city. And it's the attention of the community. Right. We needed the attention. And for us to kind of collect that attention, we have to give them a reason to tune in. Right. So me, I'm a little bit more on the whimsical side of things. I really just harnessed sort of a sense of humor and a sense of honesty during that snow event that we had in that spring. That was just ridiculous. We're all just trapped in our homes, just wondering what is going on. And so I made it a point to at least 2 times a day, at shift for our snow operators to, what have we done? What are we doing? What's the situation? Right. And then pepper in between maybe some memes to make fun of the ridiculousness of that actual event that Mother Nature gave us, thankfully. And, you know, what I saw was, you know, that worked a lot better than my previous tactic. And my previous tactics were clear, consistent communication. Okay. It just lacked the creative side, you know. Right. We're working out there. We'll be very patient. We have 550 lane miles we have to operate. This. That would help a little bit. But what I didn't have was the Trojan horse. I needed that Trojan horse to grab the attention. That's where the humor would come in. The kind of the mini. They were kind of broke convention by how long some of those posts were. Yep. But there's a lot to convey, and there's a story to be told in little tiny tidbits, and they were comprehensive as well. So you can go through almost and build a chronicle on some of those posts on the status of fighting that storm. And, you know, I got a lot of attention for that. And I always try to push that back on, like, listen, the people that made this manageable were the people in the trenches, the blades. Yeah, right. I'm sitting at home in my underwear or binge watching Netflix, eating Doritos and posting on Facebook. I mean, we're not the same here. They were doing a lot more stuff. They were getting stuck. They were in whiteout conditions. Right. I was just trying to give the people what they kind of needed at that point, and what that was an idea of what is happening out there. When am I getting out of the situation? And you know, it worked. It worked so well that we continued that strategy over into the next construction year, right? The next snowstorm, and now it just kind of can be applied all over the place. And you know, I'm no longer with the city, but you can still see them doing that. The team that we had there, they were. I mean, Brian and T were great teammates, and you know, it wasn't just me thing, it was an us thing. Yeah. And they've been able to continue that. And I know that the council enjoyed that, and a lot of my colleagues enjoyed that, because it made their life a lot easier. The phone wouldn't ring as much when people were getting that communication and that engagement and that response from the city. Yeah. I think now we're always upset at Greg for leaving his garbage can out. We created Greg in that spring too. And you know, that was again part of the story. Every story has a hero and a villain, and we needed to assign a villain. That's Donald Miller stuff right there. Yeah, we had to assign the antagonist. Yep. In order to tell the story properly, and you know, we all know a Greg. We all have been Greg. Yes, we have. All of these little things that we do that we don't know we're not supposed to do. Right. Are just little tidbits of Greg just oozing out of us, and it's easier. It's relatable. It's easier to put a named faceless human in front of that, rather than just being, hey, don't do this, everybody doing this. No, it's one dude. Yeah, it's one dude. Greg. It's Greg. Something else you mentioned is the city council and things like that. So that's an interesting position where are you reporting directly to them, or are they? No. Okay. The position that I once had was reporting directly to the city manager, which is a really nice structure, in my opinion, for government. You know, there's various types of government. We have a city manager form of government, one of the only ones in the state.
Okay.
Soft mayor. I think the term's weak mayor. I don't like that. That's not fair. Like it's a soft mayor,
Right.
from a leadership position, but not like a strong authority position, right?
Right.
You have a professional, a CEO in the city manager who's tasked with making sure that the other professionals are going all the same direction. Meanwhile, the council's there to be responsive and reactive to the community's needs. So you get the political world and the corporate world to work together in the city Minot's form of government. I think that's far more successful. As an employee,
yes,
it's better to have that layer, that buffer between the political side of things, because you're allowed to do the things that you should be doing as a trained professional, a subject matter expert, as they would say, and not have to worry about the political side. It's still there, but you get a buffer of area there with that CEO like city manager side. So the position that I held and all the other department heads, they report to the city manager. City manager is responsible to the council. Council is responsible to the citizens of Minot. That's kind of the structure of everything. It's like an hourglass.
Makes sense. That's a really good insight right there. Another thing that you mentioned is that you tried to, you have your 3 C's that you work off, and one of them that you had to transition to was being creative. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting in business how you can have the world against you as the business owner, but at the end of the day, the client, they care, they're understanding, people understand, but they really don't care. It still affects their life when it's not able to get done. Mm-hmm. But the creativity, when you're able to break it down in a different way, it approached from a different angle, and suddenly people were like, you know what? This is life. Mm-hmm. This isn't just 550 miles.
550 lane miles.
50 lane miles that have to be plowed. This is a 48-inch storm that we can do nothing about. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how, if you're able to think of things through a different angle, how people are able to understand. If you just show them facts, they don't care about facts.
Facts are boring. They're important.
They're important.
They belong there.
Yeah.
But you have to provide a vehicle for the facts to drive from point A to point B.
Right.
Without the vehicle, you're not going to get there.
Right.
So, in your various ability to use creative communication is the difference between walking and driving in a lot of cases.
Something important for business owners to take side of. So, you worked at the city, and then recently you made a transition, a pretty big transition, and you went to work at Prairie Grit.
Yeah, I'm very well branded here.
Yeah, I see that today. That's awesome.
Yeah, so about just a little under a month ago, I made that kind of that pivot from the public sector into a nonprofit sector.
Right.
Not drastic, but it's different,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great. I mean, this organization, a lot of people are familiar with it, not many, but they do a lot more than people understand. And I'm just getting my talons into it. I can't quite explain everything that Prairie Grit does, but in essence, it is providing children and adults with certain disabilities opportunities to participate in all types of sports, from basketball to sled hockey to even hunting. Wow. Their reach is vast, and it continues to grow. There's no bound or no confines to the ability that this organization is trying to help people who otherwise may not have had certain opportunities just because of something that they couldn't control themselves, right? So adding in its little things, adding an adaptive CrossFit for kids to help maybe with their motor skills or their strength and just normal things that we take for granted that we can do, or maybe we don't do, but we still have that opportunity just to have a little edge to where it's more inclusive to everybody. Just gives people who may not a decade ago have had that chance. Now they get just as many chances as the rest of us. And in a lot of respects, a lot of the sporting programming that Prairie Grit does is inclusive to people of all abilities, including you and I sitting here. We can join a men's wheelchair league on Wednesdays if we want to, and we can play alongside everybody. And everyone's got an equal playing field, and everyone is having the same amount of fun doing the same activity as a group. It breaks down those barriers, both physically and, mental barriers of that ability to come together and play something as simple as just sport.
That's incredible. So it's something more than just a sign on the wall at Qdoba. Now I get to actually see
Qdoba, that's a very important wheel to the cog of Prairie Grit. I mean, they give 1% of their profits to the organization.
Which is fantastic.
And without that, kind of support, you don't get all of these growing opportunities.
Right.
I mean, you take one wheelchair for wheelchair basketball. You think it's okay. What could that be? Well, it's like a $5,000 to $8,000 piece of equipment. Like it's hard to outfit.
Yeah.
3 of those, let alone 6 of those for 3-on-3 basketball. So it's not a cheap endeavor, but it is a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What was the driving factor behind leaving the city? Obviously, life choices happen, so I'm sure some of that's part of it. But
it's a loaded question, Jonathan. So I wasn't looking to leave the city,
right?
But Prairie was looking to expand into marketing, and I caught the attention of some people in the community, including Chad Thompson, who's the president of the board of Prairie Grit, and he came and said, "Hey, I would love to chat with you about something." And I met with him, and he asked, if I'd be willing to do it. And I'm like, didn't dismiss it, but I didn't take it seriously. But then I started thinking about it, and I started to really think about the mission that Prairie Grit has, and the kind of meaning that could selfishly bring to my life and my family's life, and then the ability to kind of recapture some of my time. Working for the city was great and all, but for 7 years, from May 2nd of 2016 to July 18 of 2023, I was on the clock.
Wow.
Nonstop. I wasn't always having to do stuff, but I always had to be mentally available if something were to happen.
Yes.
That's the role, right? It's essentially, not a first responder, but a second responder kind of role.
Right.
With Prairie Grit, I can bring my kid to some of the events.
That's awesome.
They just had a water sports day at Metagoshi. It's an amazing event where they have all of these sponsors and volunteers. People from Mandan called Sporting Chance bring up adaptive ski equipment to get a lot of these kids and adults a chance to just get behind a boat and just enjoy the thrill of water skiing and things like that in a safe and adaptive way. I got to bring my family with so they could see what that was and enjoy the day at the lake, which was a beautiful day. And those kind of opportunities you just don't get in the municipal government employment, right?
Nope.
So it was a lot of little things at the right time, and I haven't looked back since. Just being a part of the mission of Prairie Grit has been phenomenal already. I haven't even started doing anything that I may want to do. I'm just trying to absorb and understand and trying to help where I can at the moment. And we'll see where that leads.
That's pretty exciting. I'll look forward to seeing some great things coming out of Prairie Grit. Obviously, they're already doing great things, but we'll keep an eye on that for sure.
My job is to just tell the story of the people that are running the show.
So we'll be excited to read those stories because they're going to be interesting.
They're pretty great.
Yeah. We did a story on somebody that was associated with Prairie Grit about a year ago, and it was just interesting to learn about what they go through on a daily basis and the mindset that they have to have, overcoming the obstacles just to play golf that we take for granted, and the wheelchair or the setup that they need in order to be able to accomplish that. It's really neat what they're doing there at Prairie Grit. So
yeah, and that's all it is about providing opportunities where previously there wasn't one, right?
That's awesome. One question I forgot to ask you, and we're about to move into some other stuff, so right now is the time to ask it, is you were involved in your role in the transition of the city hall. That had to be very, very time consuming, but it also had to be very concerning mentally because like you're involved in the AV, you're involved in all this stuff, and you have to make sure that it works right. Obviously there's a company you're working with and all that, but what was that like?
Boy, you get a new respect for Lance Meyer, the city engineer, right? Yeah. He builds roads, not buildings, but he had to be the kind of project manager for that. And just all of the little pieces you don't think about. You have to make sure that finance department has what they need, and everyone has a space. And then there's the piece of putting dispatch in there and recreating an IT infrastructure with server space and future proofing everything. And our audio video of our chambers is where I came in. When I started at the city, we didn't broadcast anything.
Wow.
And at that time, it was 2016. It was right after the price of oil just plummeted.
Oh no.
So the city was on a spending freeze, right? Because we didn't know what was happening with the state finances and the sales tax dollars that the city uses. So I went to the city manager, Lee Staub, and I'm like, here's what I think we should be doing. I mean, this is where government happens. It's in this room. Yeah. That time it was once a month.
Right.
People should be seeing this. And he's like, okay, make it happen. I'm like, all right. He's like, here, he flipped over a piece of paper to a blank side and he says, "This is how much you have to do it though." It was empty. I was like, okay. So luckily enough, my predecessor, he was a videographer by trade. We had some equipment. I went and used my own money to buy what was called just a capture card, plug it into your computer so you can get the feed from the camera in. And I set up the camera in the back of the room and I just put it on YouTube and plugged it into the audio and I made lack of a better term, chicken soup out of chicken poop.
Right.
And we were live.
Yeah.
And then, people started to tune in. It wasn't a lot. You see that natural organic growth of, social media presence. But you'd get a couple dozen, soon it'd be 50 or so. And I'm like, we got to make this better and more viewer friendly. Because at that time, if Lance Meyer was up at the podium addressing the council. You can see the council, but you saw Lance Meyer's back of the head, and I don't think he appreciated that as much as others. But you couldn't see who was presenting. You couldn't really see what was in the room as well. So I said, here's what we need to do. We need to probably put some more money into it. And at that time, we're still real tight on the budget, but we found a way to leverage some community facilities funding through sales tax to put, what was it? 40 grand in that room or something like that. And that was to make the room ADA accessible. We had to install a wheelchair ramp so people who may have been in a wheelchair could actually run for council and get up there, because before it was 2 steps. You had to get up on that dais. So they needed to roll up, ramp up. And then an ADA friendly podium that could swivel and screens in front of everybody, and then the brains of it that push the message out. So we built that, 17, 18, just in time for a pandemic to hit, where this would have been a necessity. It would have been. So, in my line of work, communication, I like to say timing isn't everything, it's the only thing, right?
Yep.
And so our timing was great to be able to build that infrastructure just in time for when the whole world had to go virtual, and we were well ahead of a lot of places with being able to teams in and hold meetings, and government didn't get disrupted for a second because that's awesome. We're ready. And, we did it with almost nothing to start.
Right.
And transitioning to City Hall, we wanted to build on that and make sure it was better. And so now it's not only just a good product for the viewer, it's supposed to be more intuitive for the user too. So if you have a presentation, sometimes you'd find someone would email presentation, formatting will get all messed up because that font's not on a computer or whatever. Now you can walk into City Hall, plug in your own computer and project onto the screens.
That's nice.
As natively and as appropriately as possible. So that was something that we really wanted to do when we made that transition too.
That was awesome. That sounds like it was quite the undertaking. But like you said, timing's everything. What would have been like to not be able to see those during the pandemic when people really wanted to know what was going on at the city?
We would have figured it out, but it would have been a lot harder.
It would have been a camera in the back of the room. It
might have been, yeah.
So that's awesome. So we know you as the guy that worked at City of Minot, worked in news for a while, working at Prairie Grit, but that's just like half of who Derek is. There's this whole nother world that Derek's involved in. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So I also have a few small businesses that actually precede my time in news, City, Prairie Grit. About 15 years ago, me and a few high school friends, we decided to start a business. When we decided, we didn't know what business that would be, though. We were just a couple of waiters at Applebee's with nothing but tip dollars in our pocket. We decided that we wanted to, we dream like everyone dreams of starting a business. So what if it's a bar? I mean, we were 20. We didn't have any idea what a bar was, right? We were never in one, but what if it was a restaurant? Because we were working at Applebee's. What if it's this? And then one of my partners found something online where someone installed Christmas lights on people's homes. And I'm like, there it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist here. Let's go do that. Not knowing how to install those bad boys, we went on anyway, and we just did it. And that's one of the most important things is if you have an idea and a drive,
do it.
And an innovation, you got to take the first step before you can take the second. Right. So you just got to go do it. So we went and secured one of my other partner's moms as our first client.
All right.
Got up on our house. It was October. We were still in college at that time, and we had a friend in college. Her name was Fern. She was from the UK, Fern Parker. Okay. She was walking by because his mom lived by the campus, and she looked up at us on the roof and said, "What are you doing up there?" "We're putting up Christmas lights." "It's October." I'm like, "Yeah, we're just figuring it out."
Right.
And that that first client turned into 6 that first year.
Wow.
And then the next year we're like, all right, let's try it again.
Yep.
6 clients turned into 12.
Wow. Double.
Okay, we doubled very modestly.
Yep.
Didn't make $1 on this. In fact, it cost us a lot of money because we're just using our own money in our pockets.
Right.
But that next year, 12 turned into 24.
Okay.
Plus downtown Minot. The Downtown Business Association got a hold of us and said, hey, we want you to do our lights on our trees and the big tree at the end, the poles, all of it. We want you to do that. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That is where that was our jump off point.
Okay.
Downtown Minot is very close to us because they gave us our first opportunity to be a legitimate business.
Right.
Years ago, over a decade ago. So much so that we bought a piece of property downtown to be a part of Downtown Minot.
We'll talk about that.
And, flash forward to 15 years later from our first 6 clients, we've had over almost 1,000 clients. Wow. We operate in almost all of North Dakota, most of Montana. We're between here and Whitefish and a little bit further east of us now too. So we've really just organically grown, and we never, if you would have asked me in whatever that was, 2008 or whatever year that was, if we'd be here this in a decade and a half, I'd say not a chance, man. This was just a silly dream by a couple of kids with high ambitions and no knowledge. Right. And here we are, we're operating.
You didn't go out and get a business plan.
No.
You didn't go out and get a funding.
No loans.
You didn't go out and
tip money from Applebee's.
You didn't even really have the power of social media to the measures that we have now.
Nope.
It was going to be face-to-face stuff.
It was organic, word of mouth. We let, what we try to do now, I didn't know this then, but I do now, is you work on building up the 4 walls, then you fill those walls with good people.
Yeah.
And a good product. And then the rest will take care of itself. And, by accident, that's what we did.
Right.
We've had our ups and downs, a lot of learning, a lot of failures.
Right.
But,
nothing wrong with that.
The successes come after the failures.
Yeah.
Because failure is just learning, right?
Right.
So we learned our lessons. We don't repeat a lot of our mistakes. Not all, some of them maybe, but not all of them. And then we've just been able to continue our growth into, a new venture of doing the permanent lights so we can be more of a year round and be able to support the acquisition of our downtown property too.
Right. So day one, you're just on the roof of your friend's mom's house. You probably didn't even have an OSHA certification or anything like that. Do you have to have that?
I can't confirm or deny that.
You can't confirm or deny that.
We're bonded, insured. We have a fleet now. We're proper businesses now.
Right.
Day one, we're basically the equivalent of mowing lawns.
Right. That's what the incredible part about it is, though. I think sometimes business gets overcomplicated. Obviously you need to do your research. I'm not going against any of those things, but also do it. Like you said, just try out what you're wanting to do, because so many businesses fail. There's a lot of businesses that fail. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a product that people are actually going to be interested in, why are you going to spend a year preparing to fail?
Yeah. But also don't be afraid of the failure.
I agree.
Failure brings growth.
Right.
And we didn't go in totally haphazardly. So we used the resources that were available to 20-year-olds. My partner went to speak with the late Dean Franzbog.
Yes.
At Minot State to make sure that our ducks were in a row so we could do this as a legitimate business. And before he walked out the door, he said, hey, by the way, do you want some lights? He was one of our first 6 clients.
That's awesome.
So he helped us immensely too to get our feet off the ground.
Right.
But it was because we were young enough and dumb enough not to care about failing. We didn't see a way to fail. And I guess in a way we were kind of right, because the market was there. We didn't know what the market would be, but the market continues to be there. So we're very fortunate, again, that cosmic energy of Minot allowed us to succeed here and expand beyond here.
So briefly, before we switch subjects, now what kind of stuff do you guys do now? I know you've kind of addressed it, but we're talking about Christmas lights. We're talking about permanent lighting. What is it?
Okay, so events, holiday, permanent lighting. We have a wedding this weekend that we outfitted a Quonset with string lights to operate as the ambient lighting.
Right.
What we found was we never thought we'd do events or weddings, right? Mm-hmm. But when do weddings happen?
Right about right now.
Generally the summer.
Yep.
Do you know what's not for sale during the summer?
People don't want Christmas lights?
There's not a lot of Christmas lights out there. So the fact that we have an inventory of lights, both used and new, brought people to our doorstep saying, hey, could we borrow
Right.
some lights? Can
Yeah.
we rent some lights? We're like, you want us to put them up? They're like, yes, please.
Right.
Because they want one less thing to worry about. So we have this whole corner of this lighting market that we didn't know was there. It was just wedding lighting.
Right.
So we're able to keep busy doing that too, providing that service at in a lot of cases cheaper than people would actually be able to buy the lights, because lights are roughly $150 a foot,
Okay.
depending on the light you want.
Yep.
Well, not only are they hard to find, they're more expensive than that right now.
Okay.
So offering them a light that we have on hand to install it at roughly the same cost actually can save them a lot of money.
Wow.
Because they don't have to worry about the extras of that. So we do wedding and event lighting. The holiday lighting is our bread and butter. So we're just gearing up for the holiday season now, believe it or not, September.
Well, you can't do it in too late because it'll be hard to get on the roof.
That's the problem, is we have a fixed number of days and hours and days
Yeah.
to actually operate. So we have to start early. So we flex our cost based on that. People let us put them up in late September. That's going to be cheaper than putting it up in late November. It just is because, well, supply and demand.
Yep.
The demand is lower in September.
Right.
Come Thanksgiving, our phone gets real busy.
I'm sure.
And we're almost booked up.
Wow.
Frankly. So a pro tip, shameless plug here. If you want lights this year and you haven't tried us before, get prettylights.com. Get there and at least get on the schedule now.
Right.
Because time is finicky and it doesn't like to expand for anybody.
No.
So we do the holiday lighting, and then last year we expanded into permanent programmable lighting. This is fixed to the fascia. It's an aluminum railing, or we have acrylic railing, and these are lights that you can control the color of every single bulb. You can set it to a chase and a strobe, or you can make it red, white, and blue for 4th of July. You can go, you're a Vikings fan and Sundays are coming. Hopes are still high because it's only September. You can go purple and gold if you want. You have a daughter who loves pink and it's her birthday. Boom, pink all over. So now we provide lighting for homes, decks, businesses, boat docks. We do some of that. Wow. All of that we light it, and it's all programmable right from your smartphone.
That's neat. LED, power of LED lights right there, I'm sure.
Well, we adopted LED very, very early.
Okay.
Before they were just kind of the basic standard. When we started, incandescent was kind of the way to go, but we wanted to go LED because they're more reliable, believe it or not. And they were more expensive. Right. They were twice the cost when we did it in 2010, I think. Okay. But what we found with some of the incandescents is those bulbs go out a lot faster than LEDs, and when they go out, that's money, right? Because not only do we install them, we warranty them through the season, right? Okay. So your lights go out, a string goes out, a bulb goes out, whatever you call us, we come back for no service charge. We come back; it's part of the package.
I see.
We take them down and we package them up, and a lot of people we leave them with people. We now have the capacity to store them too for you, but it's an all-inclusive package, a one-time cost thing. So what we needed to do is make sure our product was the best, right? Because we didn't want to go back until we had to take them down. Yeah. And so we made the investment in LEDs, and we haven't looked back since. It's almost exclusive LEDs.
Is the cold really hard on the lights?
The LEDs are much hardier. There were times when incandescent, those old Christmas bulbs that you screw in, the glass bulbs, those bad boys, if it was 22 degrees out and you touch it, they might go out. Those were terrible. Yeah. These ones are way more reliable. What really damages the lights is the warmer months, the sun. Sun beats on those things and it crumbles the clips. It really, really dents on the casing of the wires. So taking them down if they're seasonal is important, or protecting them with the aluminum railing or acrylic railing that we have for the permanent features. Yeah. Those are really important because that sun really does. We have hours and hours and hours of sun in the summertime. It doesn't get a break, so that stuff takes a beating.
That's very interesting. Well, if you're looking for some Christmas lights, like you already said, go to prettylights.com.
Get prettylights.com.
There you go. So this enabled you to buy some space downtown.
Yeah, so we are the proprietors of the old Farmers Union grain elevator downtown. Okay. Almost an acre lot on the northeast corner of downtown. Right. And when we did that, we just needed space. Okay. Because with going into the permanent light venture we no longer were having just little 1x1 boxes that we had to store. We had 7-foot boxes with the railing that we had to store. So we needed more space. And up until May of 22, we've been operating out of a cold storage unit for the whole time,
Great.
which wasn't great for the people we have working because they don't have a place to go warm up when
Right.
it's cold out.
Yeah.
So we were looking at, shop condos, but
Those are
rents
expensive.
are expensive.
Yep.
And so we're like, well, let's see if we can buy.
Yeah.
And we went and worked through Source Basin Planning Council to help with their Business Accelerator program. Fantastic organization work
Right.
for any budding business entrepreneurs out there, and you need a place to start. I would go talk to them.
Okay.
We worked with Beth. Bree's great. Aaron's great. They're very helpful. Their
Right.
mission is to help
Yeah.
businesses in our area. I mean, the city and the county and state, they give them funding to do that. They were very meaningful on our jump to get this property acquired, which was significantly cheaper than paying rent. And now, because of my role at the city, I worked with Justin Anderson at MACA, Minot Area Council of the Arts, on the 10-year flood anniversary. And he was mentioning this project that him and his board were working on. They're thinking about getting this muralist from Australia to do this larger-than-life mural downtown on these
Interesting.
silos. But the owner at that time didn't want to put the painting on the building.
Okay.
I don't know why. And then the city was taking down the white ones that people often mistake as the ones that I own. That's going down for MI6 flood control.
Okay.
So right before I closed, I walked over to Mac and I said, "Hey, Justin, are you still interested in doing that project?" And he's like,
Right.
"Yeah." If you know Justin,
Yeah.
it's very
Deep voice. Yeah.
Yes. Why?
Very well done.
I think I might have it now.
Yeah.
And we did that. And then I met with Tim Bauman and
Yes.
Chelsea Gleich, who are kind of the leaders of that project. And we haven't looked back since. So my role, I'm on the committee supporting the silo, but what we're doing, my Pretty Lights or Pretty Holdings is the operating company that owns the property.
Okay.
We're giving the canvas to the project, right?
Okay.
We are taking on O&M. We're going to light these bad boys up. We're paying the electric bill, and we're giving the canvas to the artist.
Yeah.
Right. This is our contribution. Yes, we want to see that painted, but it's because we want to flip what this corner of downtown Minot is into something that it could be. And our mission is in the name, Pretty. We want to make this a place of prettiness, not just a giant concrete structure that stands 126 feet in the air.
It's incredible.
So the partnership with MACA and which is the fiscal agent, but it's really Tim driving this, Cole Kruger and Chelsea, they're really driving this project, and we're just very happy that they're willing to partner with Pretty Holdings to make this a reality, and so we can bring the largest piece of art in North Dakota to Minot.
That's neat.
This is called the Monument Project. There will not be one by this international renowned artist in the state of North Dakota except for Minot, and that's really important. It's like our own little Mount Rushmore that people should flock to come just see, because they might jump to all the little, and he likes to do smaller towns. He doesn't want to be in the main economic drivers. He doesn't want to be in Fargo. He doesn't want to be in Bismarck. He wants to be in places like Minot or Mankato. So there are going to be people that just bounce through the flyovers to go see these monument pieces, and Minot is going to be one of those destinations.
That's neat. So when can we expect that will be done?
Done? Well, that'll be in the hands of the artists. We still have some more fundraising to do. It's a $350,000 project. We're about 60% there.
That's awesome.
He's been here. I've took him around the property. He's kicked the tires. He really loves the location and the shape and the things that he looks at. He was really excited about. Now it's just bringing him here. And the coolest part of this isn't that he's just slapping up a painting, something that he's made up in his mind, something that he's commissioned before. He comes here and he basically kind of lives here in a way. Okay. And he learns about Minot. He takes Minot in. He speaks to people within the community, and he's a photographer by trade. Yep. So he takes pictures and he takes videos and he absorbs who we are, and he tries to translate that into this giant work of art. That's the most appealing piece for me, is that it is an organic piece representing our community to the country in this monuments program. So we expect him here, I think this fall, to start doing some of that engagement and meeting and gathering his inspiration. And I think
it's an incredible project.
We think spring of 24, he'll start to slather up some paint. So.
That's awesome. That's really neat. And it'll be probably, like, how long will it estimatedly take him if he was months? I mean,
he's doing 4 sides of a 126 foot grain elevator and 80 foot silos. So it's going to take a while.
That's got to be a time.
It's going to be a process, and that's that's fun for us too as a community. We're going to get to see the little pieces at a time.
That's going to be really
to
cool.
just see it develop in front of our eyes. It's almost going to be like the extreme home makeover where they move the bus. It's just the bus is going to move real slow.
Real slow. Yeah. Well, it'll be neat to see how an artist does that, because I can't even imagine where they would start. When you're
at the bottom. I'm not sure.
Perhaps. Yeah, and then when you're 126 feet in the air painting, it seems like that'd be the last thing I'd be worried about. But he's going to be in his own world.
It's an old hat for him, but yeah. And some of the pieces, his name is Guido van Helden, and some of his pieces are just amazing. The detail that he can put on these giant buildings is just phenomenal.
Yeah, incredible. Well, we'll look forward to that when that comes out. Obviously, we've been tracking that a little bit on the Dakotan, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of that come out. Before we were jumping on, you said that there was one more new venture that kind of happened, and you're looking at starting.
We're early, but we can tease it a little bit. So, inside our building in downtown, we have this big, what used to be where semis would drive in and load up and unload grain, right? So we have this huge bay, which is why we purchased the property, because that could be a shop and a warehouse for us. Right. But we want to do more with that kind of in our slower months. And so we are going to start to work on flipping vans into custom built camper vans, like the van life thing. So custom builds, sale, and rentals. We're really early in that. We haven't even named this bad boy yet. Right. So we bought our first van this week. So that's something that is coming to downtown Minot, is custom built van life that people can come and, provide input or just buy right off the rack too. Right. So it's going to be slow, right? We got to get our feet under us, but it's something that we're going to look at starting as early as January.
But basically, you'll be able to go and either buy a van, or you can go and rent if you're going on a 2-week vacation.
Think of an old Econoline, and then we put beds and tables and sinks and everything, and you can purchase a van. A lot of people like to purchase that. Traveling nurses might want to purchase a van so they can travel around, follow the money, and just kind of live.
Houses are expensive, so I might just buy one to live in. So.
Yeah, or we'll have an option where you can just rent it for a weekend, take it to South Dakota, take it out to the Rockies, take it to Duluth, or like our Canadian friends can come here and rent that, and just maybe just go to our state parks that we have that are great. Go to Metagoshi or Fort Stevenson or Pembina or wherever. Will just be a place where you can start your adventure.
I want to take like a 2 to 3 week vacation, go down through Wyoming, hit Denver, get over to Salt Lake.
Great, yeah, and being able to do it without having to know how to drive a giant trailer or having an RV to navigate. It's easier to port through, urban areas. Yeah. Easier to find a place. You can be on the grid or off the grid kind of thing. So that's the opportunity we're hoping to bring down to Minot too.
That's pretty exciting. So you've obviously been involved in a lot in the last 15 years. What is a tip you give to someone that's starting out in business? Just do it. Don't
be afraid of failure. Failure is growth.
Right.
Do it and use the resources available. If you don't know what those are, ask. We have a Minot Chamber EDC. Mark Lyman can help you get going. He has a great program called Startup Minot, which is great for budding entrepreneurs. There's a networking that they do once a month, or there's classes with co-starters that he does. Service Basin Planning Council is a phenomenal resource for getting you started with financing and things like that. There's so many opportunities in Minot that people don't realize. All we need is the innovative idea, the creative problem solving, and just the motivation to just go do it. And there's so much fruit to be picked in our market, because we have really talented people here. I just don't think everybody knows the tools that we already have in place to make it a success. So use those resources, the Minot Chamber EDC and Service Basin as a starting point, and there's a lot more out there too. I know, we have a lot of local banks. Credit unions are great too if you want to go a more traditional route. So we really have a community set up for amazing growth.
Fantastic. Did you have like a mentor or someone that really guided you along the way, or is a lot self-taught?
It depends on which hat I'm wearing. Yeah. Right. On the business side, I kind of just made it up and tried to do some self-learning. But from communication, one of my professors at Minot State was really influential. It's Neil Roberts. He kind of runs the program there. And he's really good at boiling it down to the lowest common denominator, whether you're doing sales, whether you're a journalist, whether you're in marketing, whether you're doing business, it all comes down to communication and storytelling. Okay. If you cannot tell people your story, why should they care about whatever it is you're doing?
Right.
Why should they buy your product if you can't tell them the story of why your product's good for them? Mm-hmm. It's those little tools that he gave me as just a broadcast major have helped me everywhere in life. It's just those understanding the importance and the tricks of communicating properly, consistently, concisely. Get you a long, long ways.
That's good. I love that you bring up storytelling. Obviously, we're coming to a close, but Donald Miller. I don't know. Have you read any books by Donald Miller?
I don't think so. No.
You need to. But maybe you don't need to. Maybe you're past all those points.
Nope. You're never past learning.
Right.
Not at all.
But he talks about the art of storytelling, and his company is Story Brand, and that's what they built off. They run a marketing. They train marketers on how to tell stories and how to help clients tell stories, from how the website's laid out to how your social media is done and all that, making sure you convey that story. So that's a really good point for someone. You just don't know what to do on the marketing side of things. Just get your story and tell it to everybody that'll listen, and that'll go a long ways.
That's the same stuff Neil taught me. I was doing, they had a little local broadcast on Channel 19. They do. It's great practice. It's really, Minot State's great for the communication because those are opportunities you don't get as a freshman or sophomore. Usually you have to be a junior, senior at other universities to be on air. But, I was doing weather just because.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, stop telling me what the weather is.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that. Anyone can tell me it's sunny outside. I can go to my window and find out. Tell me the story.
Gotcha.
Why is this sunny good? Why is it sunny now and why is it not going to be later?
Right.
Give me the why and the hows and tell me the story about weather. Same thing with sports. Don't tell me the scores. I can find the scores.
Right.
Tell me, how did that score happen? What was the trial, the tribulations of the game that made that score matter?
Right.
And that one thing was just eye-opening. I'm like, oh, okay, that's storytelling. There we go. Keep it to a story because that's how we connect as a species. That's where our community comes from. Is we evolved to tell stories, to educate, to inform, and to convince. And that's what you need to do in this world is those three things. And you have to be able to tell a story to do that.
It's good stuff. Well, anything else you have to add? Because I think that's a good place to end.
Probably, but I'm tired of talking. Let's be honest.
We've been at it for a while. So thank you for watching another episode of the Strategist podcast here on the Dakotan and brought to you by Shock, Safe, and Lock. Be sure to subscribe to the Dakotan on YouTube and stay tuned for some other fun podcasts that we're going to be having come out later this month. Thank you. Have a great day.